Okay, we're back with episode 2 of the podcast that we don't have a name for yet. That we're trying to figure this out.
No, you can't say that because we're going to record the intro.
Yeah, but
later.
All right, fine.
And they'll play it.
Okay, edit this part out.
Or we could leave it.
Yeah, whatever. All right. Anyways, we are back with episode 2, talking about Star Wars, The Force Awakens, to be specific. So that's our topic on this one. In the previous episode that hopefully you've listened to, we talked about just kind of the what we felt about The Force Awakens and where it went and what we kind of were disappointed in. And now we're actually going to talk about what we would have done differently had we been given the opportunity. Now we understand that we're not the writers of the script. We are just fans, and but we are writers, and we do enjoy the medium, and that we can't go back. There's no going back, especially now. But this is just ideas that we have come up with. Now, also, we put a stipulation in the rules, basically, that we give ourselves a week, pretty much, to come up with whatever ideas we've come up with. So there's going to be a few ideas that might sound more like a first draft, and I think that's perfectly fine because we're just kind of brainstorming ideas and try to come up with a cohesive story for it. But still, it's not the polished, finished product. Anyway, so we're going to try to just dive into this. And this section, this portion of this episode of the podcast is just strictly about what we would have changed, or how we would have done it. So I don't know if anyone wants to start off first. I think, Josh, you have a pretty in-depth one. I have a pretty in-depth one. Thomas, we haven't discussed yours quite yet, but I don't know if you wanted to go first or not.
No, I'll let you guys go first.
Okay,
I have some stuff, but it's probably not nearly as in depth as you guys.
And for the sake of time, we'll try to go through this as fast as we can, but also as coherently. So, basically, what I decided to do was kind of start from scratch with The Force Awakens. Where I tried to keep as many of the actors that they had involved, but there might be some shifting of characters. There might be cutting out characters altogether, and I'll explain, as far as I can. Okay, so this is Cody Carwell's take on what I would have done differently with The Force Awakens. So we start off with the opening crawl. It's The Force Awakens. It's years after the Empire has fallen and the Republic is still in its adolescence. So it's not brand new, but it's not it's not 100 years into the future or whatever. The other organizations, because there was the Trading Federation and all the other stuff there, they take it seriously, but it's still building itself. As we go along, we have Senator Leia Organa is prepping a new generation of leadership to take the reins and ushering in a new generation of diplomats. With a similar goal in mind, Jedi Master Luke Skywalker has reformed the Jedi Council. Though he has chosen a far-off planet, formerly the site of an ancient Jedi temple, he still counsels the Republic as a representative of the Jedi. He has chosen to stay out of politics as much as possible, knowing how the Force being used to influence politics ushered in the rise of Emperor Palpatine. Meanwhile, we have General Han Solo, commander of the New Republic Armada, patrols the galaxy for any outlying threats. But as time has progressed, fewer and fewer threats appear. Unbeknownst to them, though, something dark reaches from the outer rim of the galaxy. So we start off with the similar shot from The Force Awakens, where there was the Dreadnought destroyer kind of crawling across the moon, except for this time, I see a tiny ship races across the moon over Jakku. If you were to pause the frame, you would see that it's just beat up. It's smoke's coming off of it. It looks like it's run through a meteor storm or something. I don't know, something along those lines. And like just a couple seconds later, like maybe 2 seconds later, as it clears the moon, we see this giant dreadnought looking ship. The only difference is like I don't want it to be one big triangle. I want there to be like a different kind of look to the ship, almost like it's still under construction. Maybe it's kind of patched together, but it's still like pretty impressive and pretty terrifying. And I kind of want there to be like almost 4 spires coming out of it, and that's going to be important for just kind of like the motif of the villains that I want to set up for the next 3 films. Let's see, where are we at? Then we cut to the inside of the ship. Inside the ship is Finn. He is wearing a stormtrooper costume armor, but there is a clear difference. Not as shiny as Phasma's, but neat. The whole of the ship is on fire. BB-8 is doing his best to hold it together. Maybe Finn is yelling to BB-8 to get the cloaking device to work or something along those lines. There's the drama. There's clearly you can see that he is running from this Empire-like pursuer. The tiny ship crash lands on Jakku, and we see Finn, emerge from the crash and try to get BB-8 and get whatever he's carrying with him, whatever is important, which is something I haven't quite ironed out yet, but something along the lines of he is taking something from this pursuer and he's trying to get to the Republic. A chase ensues. Phasma, because I actually really liked the character of Phasma, and I really wanted to see her more fleshed out, and I feel like we have not gotten that in the other 2 movies.
No,
like it's
definitely not.
It's been pretty laughable, especially for the actress. Like she's a good actress, and she can play an intimidating character.
Yeah.
And I think it's just kind of sad that we haven't really seen her, and I think having a female villain is actually almost stronger to me than having a female hero, a heroine, because it's not necessarily like we don't necessarily see the strong female villain that is like physically strong. We see some of those times in Deadpool, but and in other movies, but really want to like really emphasize that Phasma is someone to be reckoned with. Let's see. Eventually, in the chase, Finn gets cornered, and Phasma she shows her strength at this moment. Now with this, so he crash lands on Jakku, which is the Jedi planet now. Mm-hmm. But it's further out in the Outer Rim. This is kind of a Deus Ex Machina kind of moment in here, but I haven't quite figured it out. It's either going to be that something with the topography or some of the Jedi show up and save Finn after he's cornered. But what I've been leaning more towards is that Kylo shows up. And he is the one that jumps in to protect Finn. But this is important. So there's a showdown between the new Jedi Order and Phasma, and Phasma actually stands her own against the Jedi. Like she is trained to fight Jedi, and this infuriates Kylo, which is something that I really want to play, because he is the heir to the throne of the Jedi Temple. Basically, he's Han and Leia's son still. He is incredibly powerful, and here he goes up against a Force user, and he pretty much loses. And he does not understand. He does not get it. The Force is the all-powerful force of the universe, and he is very, very good at it. And he doesn't understand how a normal human, a normal whatever, can have that ability to take him down. But she's a trained, warrior. So the way I've been thinking about this is that I think it'd be cool if Luke. Let's see, Luke is talking to him using the Force connection, and because he Luke knows that something's going on, and he did not want Kylo to go after him. He's like, we'll take care of it, but you don't go after him. And Kylo did not listen to the orders and went after whatever was going on because he's looking for a fight. He is bored, which is not unlike what I would assume Han Solo would feel like in a time of peace. He's getting kind of bored, and he can't be the smuggler he was because he was, he's a hero now. Mm-hmm. People know who he is. He can't go out and do the Kessel Run anymore or steal things or whatever. He can't be a pirate. So anyways, we're moving forward. They get away from Phasma, but that is the initiation of the hunt. The Phasma is like, okay, I'm going after these guys. They have my target, and there's a new threat now, and I'm a hunter, and I'm going after them. So we get back to, but it'll take some time for her to kind of rally the troops. This might also be a moment where, now that I'm thinking about it, she could talk to her commander, which just spoilers ahead. I wouldn't want to let the audience know right away. But the main villain for this trilogy will be Thrawn, and I think Josh also has a story built up with him. I think if you're, in order to keep that idea of the First Order, instead of creating something completely brand new that doesn't have anything, that doesn't have any history, that we don't care about, why not pull one of the most dangerous characters in Star Wars mythology? Why not pull him into the canon and make him something important?
Well, we should probably talk for a second just about Thrawn, because there might be listeners who have no clue who that is because he hasn't shown up in the movies. Did you want to go into that?
So basically, to give a general rundown, Thrawn is a military genius. He was he's a blue alien guy, and he. I forget what's the name of his race. Do you know?
Chess.
He's a chess, right? So he is the only non-human, I believe. Is that correct? He's the only non-human to rise up to basically be was he a Grand Moff or no? What was he?
Yeah, Grand Admiral.
He was
as high as he could go in the Empire.
Right. So he against all odds and against the xenophobic nature of the Empire, he rises to the highest level that he possibly can, and he is a military genius. He is always 3 steps ahead, and so. But in his story, he's tasked to patrol to bring in the Outer Rim for the Empire, and that's where he kind of creates his own outposts, and he even creates his own starships. He creates his own TIE fighters that are better and more agile than Darth Vader's TIE fighter. I think there was a story where he even said it. And I just think, I honestly think that would be the most intriguing villain, because one, I don't think we've had an actual alien villain. We've always had human villains in Star Wars, and I think that's a little reductive of the space that it exists in. A military genius that is not Force sensitive, but is well aware of the Force, worked alongside. They didn't like each other, Darth Vader and Thrawn, but they worked alongside each other. But I feel like of anything, Thrawn is the Batman of the Star Wars universe, where he always has a plan in order to take down anybody, including himself, if he ever had to. And so that's why I think it would be really, really cool to have him as the main villain throughout this trilogy, and then have his stormtroopers that are trained to take down Jedi, which is led by Phasma. And also have Finn be a former member of the Hand, which is the organization that Thrawn is commanding. That's the name of his fleet. And that's kind of why I wanted there to be like the different starship with the four spires coming out to make it look like the hand. So it would be foreshadowing that it would be the reveal of Thrawn by the end of this movie, or somewhere down the road of this movie, he would be seen. But as far as kind of the dangerous villain, or the more combatant, you have just the hand in general, and you have Phasma, and I'll get into that on where I want to go with that. So then we move back to the Jedi Temple. And that's where we meet Rey. I still think Rey's a good character. I think that it just needs to be tempered. And the first thing that I see her do, and this is because I want this in some Star Wars movie, the first time we meet her, she's building a lightsaber. We have never seen a Jedi build a lightsaber. We've heard about it, but we've never seen it. And I want it to be like that she is moving every piece of it with her mind. That she is so... she's not great at everything, but she's really, really good at building lightsabers, and she's really, really good at using the Force to move things with her mind. And that's going to be important in the upcoming episodes. It's going to really set a stage for this grand fight that I've always wanted to see, and I'll probably talk about that in a later episode. So yeah, like tiny little screws, tiny little specks of gem are being like basically fused together with her mind. And then let's see. And then we see another Jedi character, and this is actually, and I'm terrible with his name. He plays General Hux, and was it Domhnall?
Domhnall Gleeson.
Domhnall Gleeson. Okay?
Domhnall.
First of all, I think Domhnall Gleeson is actually a fantastic actor, and I really don't think that General Hux was the character for him. And what I would do is I would make him a Jedi Master, but he's not a Jedi Master in the sense that Obi-Wan or Qui-Gon Jinn or any of the original Masters were. This is the first generation, the first graduates of the Jedi Academy under Luke Skywalker. And this is also in a time of peace, and also in a time where they have lost a lot of their tradition. They've lost a lot of their, holocrons and things like that. And the thing that he would say to her is basically, "Oh, you're building another one," and she's like, "Yeah, I haven't found one that fits yet." And basically, just kind of saying like she doesn't feel like she quite fits where she is. That's the hitting the nail on the head on that one. So we get everybody back. Kylo comes back. Finn, BB-8, they all get to the Jedi Temple, and this is kind of a big deal because there's not usually non-Force visitors are not usually they don't usually come to the temple, and this is when we first see Luke come out. Luke lays Kylo out for not following his orders, and in that time, Rey and Finn meet. Rey is fascinated by BB-8, and they strike up a friendship. Kylo he's so angry because not only did he get his butt handed to him by Phasma, but now he's made it back to the temple, and his master Luke, also his uncle, is chewing him out for and he's like, well, I saved this guy, and he's like, did you? I mean, also I really want to set up more flaws for Rey at this part. One being that she is easily influenced by her friend Kylo, and that's going to be another thing that I really want to set up, is that Kylo is very, very good at influencing people, almost to the point where it's like he's subconsciously using the Force influence, and not many people realize it, that he's that good. It's just this. It's kind of like the Purple Man and Jessica Jones, but like of course Luke knows about it, and Luke is strong against it. And Rey is fairly strong against it, and other ones are like decent against it, but like the lesser Jedi, the younger Jedi, they're not, and that's going to be important. as time progresses, I kind of think that there would be this could be a time for like maybe a dream sequence with Kylo where we show his inner turmoil and he feels that the balance of the Force is not to shy away from the dark side. And this is just kind of talk about his hubris and how he's like, I need to get stronger because I failed. Let's see. And this is something that will kind of be maybe a theme stated is just kind of like, is war necessary for development? Does a warrior need to fight? Our ancestors are legends because of what they had to do to give us what we have now. But in giving those things, we have become soft, not as sharp. And this will set up Kylo's quest for power. Let's see. So then the hand ends up coming down to Jakku. They're just raining fiery hell on the Jedi under Phasma's orders. And like I said, these are not the Jedi from the prequels. They're not militant. They're more knowledge based. They want to understand the Force, but they have lightsabers, but they're not as well trained. They're not as they're not General Kenobis. The Hand and Phasma move through the ranks of the Jedi and are killing a good bit. Like I want there to actually be like casualties of the Jedi. Like they are just they're trained. This is not the same war that we fought. So then I have Kylo is told by Luke to run. Finn and Rey and Dom get in a craft and get off the planet. The remaining Jedi flee. Luke stands to fight the military force by himself and does cool stuff with the Force. Like this is where I really want like new stuff to be done with the Force. Now this is kind of a thing that I have in mind where as he's telling Rey and Finn to run and Dom, and also I wanted to also go back and say that I think Domhnall Gleeson, it would be cool if he was an alien or whatever. And he's also like very kind, very soft, and he'll have a very interesting transformation in the upcoming sequels to that. And that's what I really want to do with him. So Luke he stands up against Phasma. Phasma does not back down, even though this is a legendary Luke, and he has learned some new tricks. And so he's fighting them, and he's taking them down pretty good. And then Kylo sees this, and Kylo refuses the orders again, and steps and jumps down and starts fighting them, and that distracts Luke. And then in doing that, Luke, I kind of wanted his robot hand to get cut off again or something. And Kylo gets cornered. He's about to get killed at this point in time by Phasma. And then I really wanted Luke to basically, with the Force, take Kylo and throw him at the starship that's about to like take off, and open the doors with the Force, do all that stuff, and then like throw him in there and close it, and then send them off into space basically. And so he's the only one left on the planet with Phasma and everybody. Let's see. Luke stands and fight. Kylo comes out. Luke drops the attack for a second dramatically to get Kylo out of harm's way. That's where I was talking about the Force push. So Luke is seemingly mortally injured in this process, but once again he shows the mastery of the Force that we've never seen and escapes into the woods. The Jedi make a light jump but are clipped and knocked off course. Phasma contacts a mysterious figure, which would be Thrawn, but the picture is scrambled because of how far away they are from the source. She explains what's happened, and they found the Jedi temple. Finn got away. The mystery man suggests that Phasma suggests regrouping, and Phasma wishes to stay and hunt Luke because I really want. There was this comic where Darth Vader is hunted down by one of the admirals. What's the old admiral's name?
The old Tarkin.
Tarkin, yeah, Grand Moff Tarkin. And I really want to like take that story and turn it into Luke versus Phasma, and that would be throughout either this movie or the second movie. It's because it's pretty awesome. Mystery Man. And so because he trusts Phasma, Thrawn is basically like, okay, yeah, I'll start moving forward towards after Finn and the Republic. And if you want to take him down, that'd be great, because he knows about him. So this is the part where we move to Finn, Rey, Kylo, and Dom are flying in space. Finn has never been this far in the center of the galaxy or whatever, so he doesn't know where he's at. The blast tumbled them through hyperspace, that hit them before they hit hyperspace, has messed the ship up pretty badly, and is stranded. And they're stranded in space. They're frantically trying to contact anyone in the area. We find out more about Finn and who the bad guys are. Finn escaped because he didn't buy into the brainwashing and knows a major devastating weapon that the Hand will unleash and needs to warn the Republic. This could be more fleshed out. The ship is approached by an unmarked vessel. Everyone freaks out because they come off as pirates. This is where Han Solo comes into play. He has been moonlighting as a pirate because he's bored. He has some fun. No one gets killed. Gives his men someone to chase down. It's a win for everyone. All the Jedi on board light up their lightsabers. Basically, I kind of want there to be like the scene where they're docking onto the ship, and it's this big standoff. And it's kind of the same thing as Force Awakens, except Chewie and Han come on with their blasters about ready to go, and then all the lightsabers light up, and then they're like, oh, okay, hey, same side, guys, same side. And then we find out that, and Kylo hates this. He's like, "Are you kidding me? You're a clown." To Han Solo, his dad. He's like, "You're a clown. You're supposed to be the general of one of the generals of the army, and you are out here pretending to be pirates just so you can have fun. Like, go home, go make yourself useful," which is something that I want him to say. So, anyways, one of the big Hand dreadnoughts shows up, and it's chasing them. They've tracked him down eventually, and Kylo's like, we got to get out of here, and They move all the Jedi onto Han Solo and Chewie's ship, and then Kylo's like, "No, I'm gonna go make sure they can't chase us." And so I want Rey to make a choice here, whether she's gonna go with Kylo or go with Finn. She ends up going with Finn, and they go towards the Republic, and Kylo stays behind by himself to take on the entire dreadnought. And so he sneaks on board. And the scene that I really want is him to get into this giant engine room, and using the Force, I want him to start tearing it apart from the inside. And it's epic. Like, I want there to be like it's crushing. And then I want him to get knocked out before he can complete it. And then Kylo is captured then by the Hand, and that will develop in the next episodes, where he becomes the Kylo Ren that we know. He will always become the villain, the Sith villain. And it's under it's not a Jedi mind trick. It's that, he'll meet Thrawn, and then Thrawn convinces him like, "Hey, I'm actually right. And if you want power, then here you go. You can have all the power you want. I'm just going to let you loose, but like, you need to know both sides of the argument before you." And he, of course, chooses the dark side. So basically that's about as far as I got in the week. To sum it up, how I want it to end is, of course, there's a big space battle. Kylo is taken out of the picture. Luke is taken out of the picture. So the young upstart Jedi are now, the only ones that are the only Jedi representatives.
That's cool.
And I want there to be, this space fight, this huge space fight where the Hand actually like starts and comes and tries to attack the Republic. Maybe it's just like one ship, and they're like, "Oh, we can stop them," and then the Hand like actually outmaneuvers a lot of them, and they take down a lot of the Republic, but the Republic pushes them back. And at the end of it, everybody's celebrating. Like, "Yeah, we won. And the only ones that are like aware that something's wrong is Leia and Han. And like, did we win? Like, but what did we lose in the process of winning? So that's about as far as I got in mine. But it sets it up to having Luke out of the picture, and then in the second episode, we have his, maybe in the first episode, but also in the next episode, where we have him, facing off against Phasma, and making that an interesting fight. Having Kylo being brainwashed, seeing seeing Rey's development as, a leader of the Jedi now. Well, probably under the Domhnall Gleeson character.
Jedi Master Hux.
Yeah, well, I mean, and what and where I want to go with him is I want him to basically become like in the next episode or whatever. Kylo starts actually using his Force influence and starts influencing a lot of the Jedi and pulls them over to his side. And Domhnall Gleeson's character is one of the few that resists. And in doing so, he is messed up as bad as Anakin Skywalker ever was. And I kind of like the idea that it's not just the Sith that have the weird, costumes all the time, but that a Jedi could actually have been like messed up and need more robotics and, to stay alive. And that's where, and his becomes like emotional scarring too, because he is such a kind character. And then he has to be, he gets PTSD basically. So that's where I would want to go with it. And that's what I would do.
Yeah, that definitely takes it in a very different direction.
Very, very different.
Yeah. What do you think, Thomas?
I mean, it's 1,000 times better than the Force Awakens that we got. Good grief. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do this for this particular exercise, but I like just reimagining it just from the get-go. When I tried to come up with what I thought would be fixes, I actually tried a different approach of trying to keep as much of Abrams and Kasdan's script as possible, the things that worked.
Actually, I should have said something.
Yeah.
Can I interrupt? I'm sorry. And maybe we can move this back. In order to keep the casting, I actually want Oscar Isaacs I'm cutting out Poe, and I would just move him to be Thrawn. That's what I would do. Okay, moving on.
That could probably work.
Yeah, it works enough.
Did you want to talk about some of the ideas you had?
I think I definitely had the more conservative approach. I didn't come up with anything as in depth as that. I kind of just was like, what if we could keep most of the movie intact? Well, I say the movie, but the characters and the actors and those roles and everything, keep them intact. Not necessarily the same storyline, but put them in different scenarios, like Han Solo. I mean, I understand that he was a smuggler and a space pirate and all that stuff, but the original trilogy changed him. You know what I mean? I kind of find it hard to believe that he got. I mean, I'm sure that he ended up marrying Leia and he had children, but I kind of find it hard to believe that he kind of just, this isn't for me. I want to go back and be a pirate again. And if they created the New Republic, and he was he was like pretty much became a general in the rebellion, why wouldn't they ask him, what do you want? what is the role that you want? Or they would try to appoint him to something. So I was like, maybe they would appoint him to, like, if not a general, he could be like in charge of like a special forces team where they do like smuggling sort of and undercover things and stuff like that, and he's in charge of that. But anyway, I don't know what his story would be, but that would be a more interesting angle for his character. And my thoughts on, because I want to keep Snoke in there, and I know this probably would open up a lot of plot holes and everything, and it's been touched on a little bit, but since cloning does exist in Star Wars, I was playing around with the idea of Snoke being a clone of the Emperor.
That could be cool.
And kind of like a deformed, keep him like deformed looking and everything. and to the point where maybe only some people know that he is a clone, and most people don't. But they know that he's really powerful and really smart, and he kind of is just bringing everything back together like it was, you know. And I don't know if this is giving away a twist way too early, but I was also playing around with the possibility of Rey also being a clone of the Emperor. And
the Emperor.
Of the Emperor, yes.
Wow.
Because I'm sure, I mean, I think there's a book on the Emperor. He cloned himself. I don't know what the name of the book is, but yeah, I was playing around with her being a clone, and she's kind of on the right path and everything, you know, trying to become a Jedi and everything, and she's probably in the council with Luke, and nobody knows that she's a clone. She kind of got dropped off there, but I really, for some reason, want Rey to turn to the dark side and Kylo to go to the good side. Okay. But Kylo kind of starting out, you know, on the wrong path, Rey's on the right path, and then they kind of crisscross each other. So when Rey kind of finds out that she's a clone, you know, it's like, oh, what's my destiny type of thing. Like she like makes up her mind that she can't control her destiny, and she inevitably goes to the dark side and goes to the Emperor or to Snoke. Maybe that, I don't know if that would be in The Force Awakens or if that would be in the next movie or whatever. But as far as Kylo, because I'm not really sure how he would already kind of be on the dark side.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know what the circumstances would be, because I guess he kind of turned to the dark side in The Force Awakens because supposedly Luke attacked him and he had daddy issues. But I don't know if you guys have any ideas on that. But as far as Finn goes, didn't give a whole lot of thought into that. I mean, I still want to keep the characters, but I don't think that like Finn and Poe and especially Finn and Poe kind of play as large of a role in it, because I feel like if you made Rey and Kylo those scenarios, Finn and Poe would just be major secondary characters in the background.
Yeah, for sure.
Those are the main points that I've come up with. I don't know where that would go, but it definitely sounded a whole lot more interesting than when we got the rehashing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I actually really like the. I mean, it's a theory that no one has approached that I've heard of what if Snoke was a clone of Palpatine, but I actually really like the what if Rey's the clone of Palpatine. I think that's actually kind of interesting.
And then maybe they don't know that each other is a clone as well.
Yeah.
And then
maybe they start force Skyping with each other.
Yes.
There's a connection. Yeah, that could actually be pretty cool.
Because they're clones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or something like that.
Of the same person.
Yeah.
We find out that...
And then there's the rule of two, but they're the same person.
Oh.
And then there's a power struggle.
And maybe they're linked to each other, so if one dies, the other dies, so they can't kill each other.
Or they become more powerful.
Voldemort and Harry.
There can be only one. Only one clone of the Emperor.
Yeah. I mean, the only problem with that would be why, if there is two clones out there, then why wouldn't there be like 1 million? You know what I mean? It would just open up all kinds of...
it's kind of the same thing as like as Boba Fett and Jango Fett. It would be the same situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An army of old Palpatine-looking clones.
Do it. Do it.
Yeah.
I think that could be. I think that could be pretty neat. The other thing too is like, have we? Well, no, I guess Snoke is a human. Yeah.
Supposedly.
Supposedly.
Humanoid. But
Yeah,
he's
he's
not.
not
I mean, he's like
looking good.
8 foot tall. So I
Oh
don't
man,
know.
yeah. I wanted to be a giant. I thought that'd be awesome.
When I saw that hologram in The Force Awakens, I was like, that is awesome because I thought he was that big.
Yeah.
I hoped he was that big.
And then
That'd be
I
crazy.
saw,
You
then they
wouldn't-
showed him on screen, and it was very underwhelming when it was just, in the
Yeah.
throne room.
He was still really tall though, like really tall. At least like 7 or 8 feet tall. It felt like.
Yeah, I guess, but still smaller than the giant I thought he was.
Yeah. I feel like Han and Leia's relationship might be rocky, but I don't think that they
Yeah.
will split up.
That
I never liked that.
That's the thing. They sort of did that. I think we might have said this in the first episode, but they sort of did that with the relationships in Indiana Jones as well, where it's like, oh yeah, he ended up with this girl, and no, or they did it they do it all the time. They did it in National Treasure and National Treasure 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hated that. So I can agree with. I think we kind of have a similar situation with Han, where it's like, okay, you are recognizable now. Like people know who you are as a good guy, and you can't really go back to your scoundrel ways. And plus, you have to have some kind of character development, and we had that character development in the first original trilogy. So
there was a video game probably 10 years ago, and I can't remember what it was called. A Star Wars video game where it was like special forces, but they were like Imperial troops. You know what I'm talking about?
okay,
It was called. It was a first-person shooter. But
You're talking about a really old game?
Yeah.
I know what you're
It
talking
might
about.
have been like 50.
Shadows of the Empire.
No, I mean it was
That
a
was
first
a game, wasn't it?
It was, which was a great game. But the video game was it was a first-person shooter, Star Wars game where you were heavily armored stormtroopers. Never heard of that game?
I thought you were talking about Shadows, because don't you play a stormtrooper in that?
No, you
Oh, you
play
don't?
as Dash Rendar in that, which I
That's
would
right.
I would
Gosh, it's
love.
been since I was a kid, since I played that game. I completely forgot about Dash.
I have his ship still somewhere in a box somewhere, but that would be another good story to explore. Or what was his name, Prince Shizor or whatever of the Black Sun or something like that. You remember, a crime organization, Republic Commando, Star Wars Republic Commando.
oh okay.
Anyway, people who listen might know what that is. And it wasn't stormtroopers. It was,
Republic Commandos.
yes, it was. But anyway,
Yeah.
it was all special forces, Republic commandos and stuff. And I just feel like Han Solo would just be in charge of some huge special forces division within the Republic and just doing all this undercover CIA crap. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I wish,
That's cool.
Anyways.
So basically, I mean, mine is completely scrapping everything. Yours is still trying to use as much as you can.
I tried, yeah.
Yeah, but still focusing more on where they screwed up the relationships and the people, and
Giving the people better backstories.
not using the First Order.
Yeah. No, yeah. And my
we've
story,
already
there
done
would
that.
be no First Order. There would be no Resistance. It would be the New Republic, and I guess it would be some sort of First Order or whatever, but it would not be called the First Order because that doesn't make any sense.
No. If anything, it should be called the Second Order.
Yeah.
Or Order
Yeah.
66.
Order 67.
67, thank you. Order 67.
Clone me and make another army. Don't clone me twice because it might be a girl.
Oh, dang it. No, that's Ray's backstory. She was a clone, but they accidentally messed up the clone process and just one chromosome off, and then
got duplicated.
It was
They're like, let's drop her off at Jakku.
Oh no, well we can't do anything with this. Yeah, just I don't know. Drop her off.
Drop
It'll be
her
fine.
off.
It'll be fine. Surely they won't make another 3 movies about her.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to go off of just from that.
Yeah.
But we're making it kind of spoofy right now, but it's still. I think it's
still
interesting.
Better. It's still better.
Yeah. How about you, Joshua?
Well, mine is actually kind of. I feel like it was sort of in between the full rewrite and kind of what you had, Thomas. I kind of looked at the things that I had a problem with the story, with The Force Awakens. I had a problem with the setup, the fact that it was back to Empire and Rebellion again, with no change. I had a problem with kind of the premise, what they were both chasing, a nonsensical quest after a map that could somehow find Luke Skywalker, and it was too convoluted and vague and contradictory, I think, and yet the whole plot was based around that sort of axis. And then I had a problem with Rey and Finn and their motivations, why they were really doing what they were doing, and then why Kylo turned to the dark side. And then I just had a problem with all the random coincidences just that are scattered throughout the entire thing. I mean, it's amazing just how coincidental everything was in The Force Awakens. So, I mean, everything needs to have a reason. Otherwise, I don't think you can put it into a story.
Yeah. The Millennium Falcon was right there.
Yeah.
When they needed it.
I definitely changed that. So, so I came up probably with most of what would be taking what worked and then rewriting it, in my opinion. So the setup change, like Cody, I've gone with Thrawn being the threat here, where he was this Grand Admiral that the New Republic didn't know about because he was all the way out in the outer rim territories, the unknown regions, actually, of the galaxy. And why he was out there is becomes important. I think would become important later on in this imaginary trilogy. And a lot of this is drawn from the Legends stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, the New Republic didn't know about him, and yet he's this tactical genius. And so in the setup, what would be the opening crawl, the New Republic, there's this new threat, and something what they only know as the Hand, just like with Cody's. Actually, that was what Thrawn's sort of empire was, called the Empire of the Hand in the extended universe. They're kind of doing hit and run attacks on the outer rim territories, and the Republic doesn't really know who this is. They don't know the nature of the threat, so they're trying to investigate that. Meanwhile, Luke has gone missing, just like in The Force Awakens, and Leia's trying to find him. He's just dropped off the map for some reason, and then, but what kind of gets the story in motion is that there is. The New Republic has kind of come across a very unlikely captive, right? Mm-hmm. And they've sent Poe Dameron to go, just to go investigate this and to go see what's really going on. And so it turns out that, and you wouldn't really find this out until much later in the story, but the captive is actually Ben Solo. And this is very surprising because everyone thought that Ben Solo was dead. So it would still open the same way. I guess it could be Jakku. I don't really care. I don't really care about Jakku specifically because in my mind it's Tatooine.
Yeah.
But it could open on Jakku. It's still Poe Dameron with Lor San Tekka, except they're negotiating the exchange, the transfer of this captive who turned himself in. Mm-hmm. And he has nothing on him except for this very strange sort of mask and a broken lightsaber. And while there is this exchange going on of this unlikely prisoner, captive, who turned himself in, that's when the Hand busts in, right? Mm-hmm. So very similar to The Force Awakens. In fact, there are going to be a lot of things like that I've kept. They bust in, and unlike Cody's version of the story, I actually would plan on introducing Thrawn right at the beginning there. You see him there. He comes in with a squad of... I guess they would be called Death Troopers, basically the Special Forces version of Stormtroopers.
Yeah.
It would be sort of Thrawn's special guard that he brings with him, kind of a really highly trained elite squad of stormtroopers. So they bust in there, they interrupt everything. Laura Santeca is killed, and Thrawn is specifically going after Ben Solo, and he approaches him, and Ben actually tries to attack him, but he can't because and this is from the Thrawn trilogy. Thrawn has this. They all have these creatures on their backs called Ysalamiri, which absorb the Force. They don't have around them. There are these creatures that create this natural sort of Force vacuum around them. So it makes him impervious to any kind of Force attack. So, but Thrawn tells him, I know you're looking for Luke, and this is not the way to do it because Luke has gone missing. But if you come serve the hand, then I'll give you the resources to find him. Right. And so I should probably stop there and just kind of explain what my idea was for Ben Solo, which was that Ben was part of Luke's academy. Same thing, Luke was trying to jumpstart the Jedi Order again at this very ancient Jedi temple, right? And Ben there, and this would be revealed probably in flashbacks, later on in the movie or the series. Ben comes across this Sith artifact that's kind of in this temple. And there's a dark presence kind of within this artifact. And this dark presence, I'm actually doing away with Snoke altogether. It's this sort of faceless, dark, ancient presence that sort of lives within this mask. It's like a mask sort of thing. That becomes the villain throughout this. The real sort of mastermind, apart from Thrawn. Thrawn is sort of the military threat to the New Republic. Yeah. And then this dark presence becomes sort of the what you might call the spiritual threat, I suppose. The threat to the Jedi, to Luke, and ultimately to the galaxy as a whole. And the mask actually could be part of the actual face of whoever this person used to be. Maybe it's petrified or something strange happened to it. But anyway, this dark presence begins to kind of influence Ben, and eventually, over time, begins to possess him, for lack of a better word. And Ben actually believes, is led to believe, this isn't true, but I think he's led to believe that this presence is is basically the ghost of Vader, his grandfather. And he is convinced by this presence, this Sith presence, to try to slaughter everyone in the temple. And what happens is that Luke only really finds out what's going on or is able to intervene right as like the last student is about to be killed. And he tries to stop Ben, and he does something, possibly a force push. The details can be interchanged, but let's just say it's a force push to try to save the last student. Last student dies anyway, but it does something. It like pushes Ben off a cliff into like some steep ravine or crevice where it's like he died. So Luke, trying to save his last student, inadvertently kills Ben. And so, where Luke will go on from there is he feels terrible about what happened. And he does kind of retreat into himself and kind of goes off for a while. Now, that's not actually his disappearance yet. But at any rate, what happens with Ben is that, and this I think becomes one of the questions kind of throughout the movie and the subsequent stories would be, what happened exactly to Ben? Because the mask revives Ben. And there's the question of, is this Ben who came back alive? Is there any of Ben left, or is this all this dark presence? You don't really know. But at any rate, the mask revives Ben, and he spends a long time down there in the depths of wherever, using the Force to kind of set his bones, his mangled body back together. And so he ends up like Vader in the sense that he's in perpetual pain all the time. But he kind of, how he ends up sort of surviving day to day is the Force is kind of holding his body together. And it's the same with his lightsaber, because his lightsaber breaks in the fall. And if anyone else were to turn on Ben's lightsaber, this is my idea, it would just create like an explosion or whatever. It would just kind of blow up in your hand because the crystals are unstable.
Yeah, that's cool.
But Ben, or now Kylo, because he ceased to be Ben, like at a certain point, that's debatable. But Kylo is able with the Force to sort of force it to create a beam, and it's changed color now. It's turned red. And that's actually one thing I do sort of like about the new canon of Star Wars that they've changed about lightsabers, is that it's your will upon the lightsaber that changes the color. It's not a crystal. I think before in Legends it was the type of crystal that determined the color. But the one thing I do like, if I can say one thing I like about the new canon, is that it's the will forcing itself onto a crystal in a particular way that creates its unique color. So at that point it's red, and it has that sort of unstable beam like we know Kylo to have now. Except now we actually have a reason for why it's that way. That we don't have to find out about in all the supplemental books that I don't care to read. Okay, so Kylo now exists, and he becomes convinced by the Dark Presence that Luke needs to die, because as long as Luke is alive, his ability to progress in his power is going to be limited. But if he can kill Luke, at least this is what he's led to believe, if he can somehow find Luke and kill him, then he will be able to, his ability to grow in the Force, in the dark side of the Force, will be limitless. And it's a skewed view of what balance in the Force really means.
Yeah.
It's actually wouldn't be correct, but anyway, this is his motivation. This is what he's doing. So he actually turns himself in, kind of posing as old Ben Solo, in an attempt to find Luke Skywalker. So that's why he was there where he was. Okay, so that's all that. Kylo ends up accepting Thrawn's offer, and goes to work for the Hand. So the next thing, the next person we would see, just like in The Force Awakens, we would go to where Rey is. Now, I don't have Rey on Jakku or anything like that. Like I said, I don't care about Jakku. It's Tatooine. And here I'd be drawing from the Thrawn trilogy, that came out in the 90s. She would be on a planet called Wayland, where actually he has a hidden storehouse on this planet. And Thrawn, well, I'll get to Thrawn in a second. Rey lives there. She's one thing I noticed about Rey in The Force Awakens, the movie, is a lot of her choices and the way she acts would make it just a lot more sense if she was just a couple years younger. If she was like anywhere between 10 and 15, she would be a lot more believable as a character. I mean, do you see that?
Yeah, I can. And it makes sense.
And I think the reason why is because she originally was supposed to be around that age. That was Lucas's idea, and I think Disney was actually going with that too, except it was, they were afraid it was too similar to some of the things in the prequels. I don't know what they were talking about. That's just what I've kind of read and come across. I don't know if they were talking about, I really don't know. But anyway, I think it would have been better if she was younger. And in this version, she would be. She would be younger. She wouldn't be as old as the Rey we know. She is a scavenger. That's how she lives on this planet, Wayland. And her whole backstory, and again, this wouldn't be revealed until later, is that she's actually a clone. And this is actually running with your, something you mentioned before, Cody, which actually surprisingly you haven't used in your, or at least
well, I mean, I haven't mentioned it, but basically, it would be similar to this.
The idea that Rey is a clone of Luke. That Vader retrieved Luke's hand and lightsaber immediately after it was cut off in Cloud City, brought it to the Emperor, and the Emperor then he creates clones off of this hand. Except the idea that I'm running with is that this cloning facility, the hand and the lightsaber, these are kept in the storehouse, and there's a cloning facility sort of next to it. Where the Emperor is attempting to create clones off of Luke's hand. Except they've run into this problem that all the clones that they've tried to make, none of them have turned out to be Force sensitive at all. And they're not sure why. And so Rey is actually a product of this experiment, so to speak, right? Now, Wayland, this particular planet is very, very secluded. It's way out there because his secret storehouse was here. So really, very few people knew about it. By the time the people who ran the facility, the cloning facility, when they received news that the Empire had fallen, quite a while had already passed since the Emperor had actually died. But they end up abandoning that facility altogether. And they just leave Rey there. And she was another one of their, failed experiments. She didn't exhibit any ability with the Force herself, just like all the others. Now, in her mind, she has like a father figure, I think, who really was one of the scientists, and in her mind, these ships, and there haven't been any ships since they abandoned the facility that have come to Wayland at all. But in her mind and in her memory, it's those ships, really those big gray birds in her mind, that took her father away. So she thinks her father was taken from her. And so she has this desire to find him again. And not only that, when she was really little, still with what she considers her father, who really doesn't care about her, and this is her arc, because she finds out later that her father just abandoned her. It wasn't really her father, didn't actually care about her at all.
Yeah.
But she remembers her father figure trying to get her to move things with her mind, kind of Stranger Things 11-ish. Actually, a lot of this could work. The stuff that they use in Stranger Things could have worked for Force Awakens, and it would have been cool because Force Awakens actually came out before Stranger Things, so they could have had a jump on a lot of these things.
You mean like her being kept in a room and
yeah,
they're trying to exploit her and he's pretending to be her father and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, there are some differences, which is that she likes her father figure. And she doesn't actually have any powers. She's one of the many clones they've tried to make. So he's trying to coax her into, or to get her to move things with her mind to see if she has Force abilities. And they're trying to figure out how to, how to create a clone off of a really Force sensitive person, Luke, that also has the same abilities.
Yeah.
And so even though her father is now gone, for all these years since then, she's been every single day, she's been like sitting down in front of some object and trying to move it with her mind and has not been able to do it. But she's determined to figure out how to do this until the day, when she sees her father again, so she can make him proud, all that stuff. Anyway, so that's her life. She, like I said, she's a scavenger. She actually scavenges parts to put BB-8 back together. BB-8 is her droid. That's why she likes him so much. And it turns out later that BB-8 is this was like a medical droid that kind of what's the word? Kind of not administered to her, just
attended.
Yeah, the droid that attended her, as she was kind of being raised as a clone. So and BB-8 has been hasn't worked for a long time, and she's finally found the parts to put them back together. And she gets him working again. So you see that at the beginning of the movie, and she's thrilled, and so she has this real, actual, reasonable, sensical, if that's a word, connection with this droid. So that's her on Wayland, right? Now, Kylo ends up coming to Wayland because the whole reason Thrawn needed Kylo was to open the storehouse, because he needed a Force-sensitive person who could find the door, who could open the door, and then defeat the Praetorian Guard that's in there, that have been basically entombed in there for decades. 100% loyal to Palpatine, and will fight to the death anyone who comes through those doors who isn't Palpatine himself. Right? And Thrawn knows all this. So Kylo comes with the Death Trooper squad that's now assigned to him.
Yeah.
He opens a storehouse, and you have this really awesome battle between him and these, those red robed Praetorian guards, kind of like what we saw in The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And defeats them all because he's nuts. He's absolutely nuts, and he has insane abilities at this point, since he's turned into Kylo Ren, since his sort of rebirth, if you can call it that. Meanwhile, Rey sees one of these ships coming and thinks that these same type of ships took her father away. So she sneaks on board, somehow manages, because she's real bright, and she's pretty slick. So she gets past somehow these whoever's guarding the ship, the landing craft. She gets on it with BB-8, who won't leave her alone, who won't leave her behind. So she gets on the landing craft while they're doing this. Kylo is able to get what Thrawn was after inside there, which is something called the Sentinel. And this is actually taken from something we talked about in the last episode. We talked about Operation Cinder. You know what I'm talking about? This was a contingency plan that the Emperor had set in place.
Yeah.
To
I
destroy.
think they got into that in Battlefront 2, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's where it comes from. And I'm kind of taking that idea because it's a really good idea.
Yeah.
My idea is that Thrawn knows that there's a contingency plan, but he needs a particular, he needs something called the Sentinel. Now, I'm not sure exactly what it is, like specifically what it is, maybe a droid or something, but it activates what I'm calling the last command. And the last command is actually a self-destruct of the Imperial city and a bunch of other planets, that are crucial to the Empire, but it had never been set off for whatever reason. The contingency had never been activated. And as a result, those places are now populated with the New Republic infrastructure. So Thrawn knows that if he can get his hands on what was supposed to be the contingency to blow up the remains of the Empire, then he can instantly cripple the New Republic. So he's after what's in that storehouse. And Kylo is able to get it for him. And Kylo not only finds that, but he also finds the lightsaber, Luke/Anakin's lightsaber. And on his way out of there, Kylo has the Death Troopers just massacre the village. That's kind of, I don't know if it's like around a mountain or something, but whatever the indigenous people that live nearby that Rey kind of lived on the outskirts of, he just has them just kill them all. And there's no reason why he has to do this. It just does it because he wants to. He orders them to. And so they start doing it. Death Troopers just wipe the village out. And there's one of them, FN 2187, who doesn't feel good about this, but he does participate in it. But he doesn't feel good about it. So he is what ends up being Finn, what we know as Finn. Yeah. Except he's a lot tougher. He's this battle-hardened special forces stormtrooper. Not the sappy whatever it was that we saw in Force Awakens. And he actually finds Rey stowed away on the ship as they're making their way back to what is Thrawn's Star Destroyer. And instead of turning her in, because he doesn't feel right about what happened down on Wayland, he decides to try to protect her. So he tells her he basically kind of hides her somewhere, and his idea is to get Poe, who's in custody with them, since from that first scene, just like with The Force Awakens, we know Poe is taken into custody. And his idea is to, without compromising himself, because he just wants to get Rey to safety. That's all he wants to do. Just get her out of there so she can live another day, so he can feel a little bit better about himself or whatever. His idea is to get Poe out of whatever confinement he's in, secretly say, here's a ship, here's your getaway, here's a girl, take her with you, goodbye, see you later. So he has to go get Poe to do that. So he tells Rey to stay hidden somewhere with BB-8. And so he goes to get Poe, but Rey does not stay put, because she's on the Star Destroyer at this point. She's on Thrawn's main Star Destroyer, which is the kind of the lead ship of the very small fleet that he has. And Kylo is also there, delivering the Sentinel to Thrawn. And Rey feels something calling to her, and she, I think originally, or at first, I think she thinks it's her father, possibly, because she's looking for him. But it turns out it's actually the lightsaber, Luke's lightsaber. And so she kind of weasels her way through the ship, and she finds it, and she touches it. I don't know if it's in Kylo's own chamber or whatever. But in some empty room, she finds the lightsaber that Kylo just took from the storehouse. She touches it, and she has all those kind of really crazy visions. And that's the moment in the story that the Force awakens in her. Because one of the things that all the cloning people didn't realize is that a clone needed some kind of connection with something that was like the lightsaber's connected to a very traumatic moment in Luke's past. And so by touching it, it kind of awakens Luke's memories that are within her, in a sense.
Yeah.
Because she carries a lot of Luke's memories with her, even though she doesn't realize it. It's kind of subconscious. But at any rate, she becomes force sensitive in a really powerful way from that moment on, although she won't use it at all until the very end, because she's going to end up in a lightsaber battle with Kylo, trying to, the story would progress to this point, but at the end, she'd be trying to save Finn from Kylo. And by the way, she's the one who names FN 21817 Finn. It's not Poe. She's the one who does it because he becomes like an older brother to her. So anyway, she has all these, she touches the lightsaber, has all these crazy visions, and she just starts running the heck out of there. She sets off all the ship's alarms in the process. The whole ship's got the Imperial sirens going and everything. And FN 217 is like, who basically has Poe now. He's back where he left Rey, and all he finds is BB-8. He's like, where is she? And, all the alarms are going off meanwhile. So he basically, in his sort of split moment decision, decides to openly turn against the hand, against his own, squad, I guess you could say, or people there. It's nothing he ever intended. He actually really, really likes the hand. And there's a number of reasons for that, but he never meant to turn against them. But anyway, he ends up with that, getting in the ship with Poe, Rey, and BB-8, and they just... and one thing that's important here is that BB-8, he has BB-8 plug into the ships. You know how R2 can plug into the ship's thing with his little finger, whatever, digital prod, and it can read. USB port. I mean, they do this in A New Hope, but that's how far back this goes. And he can kind of get all the sort of information of what's going on in the ship to figure out where's what, right? Yeah. So, Finn has BB-8 do this, except BB-8, and this becomes important later on in the story, BB-8, because of the type of droid he was on this super top secret cloning facility, his top secret, what would you say, credentials or classifications are like as high as you can possibly go, because he has access to it.
I like that.
So in the process of reading where Rey is, they find out later that he was able to read into, he basically knows, they what ends up being the rebels later, realize that BB-8 knows what Thrawn is up to, or at least where he's headed next. And that becomes very, very important later, because it's all in the system. Anyway, they get on a ship, they try to escape. They end up crash landing on the planet where the Star Destroyer was parked outside of. And the reason they're near this planet, it's a planet called Merkur. And again, this is from the Thrawn trilogy. I'm borrowing a lot because a lot of it works. And I would introduce a character called Talon Karrde, who was like a Han Solo type, kind of just in it for yourself, sort of a Lando Calrissian, this is my business. And the reason Thrawn was there is because he's negotiating the sale of 5 small cloaked ships. That can just get past pretty much any. I mean, this guy uses them for smuggling. Well, Thrawn is about to purchase several of these, and these have to do with the plan that Thrawn is about to implement to cripple the New Republic, right? To get what is the Sentinel, whatever that is, in the particular vicinity of particular planets, to take them out, with cloaked ships, so that no one knows what it is that's causing the disruption. And what the Sentinel actually does, and this is taken from Operation Cinder, but it actually goes back to some of the really early comics of Star Wars, which is that it sends out a data stream, which I don't remember what they're called now, but basically the satellites around the planet that were originally created for geoforming the planet. But they can also, if the settings are changed on these things, they can actually create severe weather storms, severe electrical weather storms within minutes, that just kill everything and destroy the whole planet, like basically create tsunamis and hurricanes. And so that's what the Sentinel does. If it can get within a certain range of these things on these planets, it'll have to send out a ceaseless transmission in order to basically destroy the planet. So that's why the cloaked ships. Anyway, so that's why they're there. They end up getting shot down. They crash land on that planet. They don't crash land on Jakku. They think Poe is dead. Finn takes his jacket. Same thing. Talon Card, the guy who's down on that planet, who's been negotiating with Thrawn, he sends out a squad of his own people to find them before Thrawn does. Finn is pretending now to be Poe Dameron because he has his jacket, and he tells him he's Poe Dameron of the New Republic, and he says, you got to get us out of here. And what Talon Card does is he says, okay, I'll do that. But and he does harbor them from Thrawn, because Thrawn's immediately sending people down to the planet to look for them too, at the crash land site. Talon Card says, I don't have them. And he's meanwhile is contacting the New Republic, saying, I have Poe Dameron. What are you going to give me? Like, how much are you willing to sell him to me for? Otherwise, I'm just going to sell him I'm going to give him to the Hand here. Now, as soon as the New Republic gets word that Poe Dameron has been found, Han Solo, you won't see him until he shows up in the Millennium Falcon. Actually, no, not in the Millennium Falcon. I said that wrong. Yeah, Han Solo shows up because actually it's Talon Card who has the Millennium Falcon. He either stole it from him or bought it from him or whatever.
Lost in a card game.
But Han is on his way there, and the reason he's on his way there because they, the last thing they knew is they had received word that Ben Solo was still alive, and Poe Dameron was the one who could get there the quickest, and they sent him, and then Poe Dameron went missing, because he was picked up. So now they have this they received this message from this Talon Card guy on this planet Merkur saying, I have Poe Dameron, how much are you willing to give me for him? So Han Solo makes a beeline because he thinks, like, what's going on with my son, right? Who I thought was dead. So anyway, they, Talon Card is harboring both Finn and Rey and BB-8 and trying to tell Thrawn that he hasn't found them on their planet, but Thrawn is way too smart and doesn't believe that for a second. So he just starts bombing the place. He blows up all of their ships so they can't escape, except there's one ship that is kind of under the tarp, and that's where you get the Millennium Falcon. So, and Talon has it, and they get on that, and they go on from there. So that's kind of like the first half of the movie. And the rest, I didn't have time to kind of figure out the exact. A lot of it just comes down to specifics of how the events play out. But the main thing is that Thrawn is setting in motion a plan to take out the New Republic infrastructure, basically all of it simultaneously. And he ends up basically doing that. And he doesn't get as far as he wanted to, only because the Republic, basically Han Solo and others, realize that BB-8 knows what other places he's going to strike next. And so they realize how he's going to do it. They have the information in BB-8 about how he's going to do it. So they're able to sort of circumvent it. So they're able to save some of the infrastructure, some of the New Republic fleets. And I think they end up retreating to an old rebel base that only Leia knows about because it was so top secret back at the time, and it's abandoned. So this hasn't been seen since the old heyday of like. I
thought you were about to say Hayden Christensen.
No, not that far back. The old heyday of the rebel, the rebel alliance against the Empire. They're kind of guerrilla, fighting and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Kylo, what's going on with him is that as soon as Rey touched that lightsaber, and the Force awakened in her, and you don't learn this until later, but he immediately senses that, and you learn later that he actually sensed Luke Skywalker on board. And it's because she's his clone, right?
Oh, gotcha.
So he becomes obsessed with finding her, and.
Does he know it's her, or does he think it's Luke?
Well, he realizes Thrawn is able to figure out who exactly escaped from their ship, and they know that Luke Skywalker wasn't there. So Kylo realizes it has to do with this girl, or the dark presence he carries around with him. Knows it's this girl. So you end up with a lot of the same situations that we find in The Force Awakens, where he is trying to get Rey. Finn, basically her older brother in this scenario, tries to, and this would be actually a really cool moment, but Finn tries to protect Rey from Kylo, kind of in that, how we saw that snowy fight at the end of Force Awakens. it will be like that, except Finn this time is really. I mean, he's a special forces guy. I mean, he obviously can't hold his own against a Sith Lord indefinitely, but he goes a long way. And it's but Kylo ends up basically almost killing him. But it's still pretty cool because I just see him having all these blasters on him because he's like a special forces guy. And he's just going through clip after clip and just throwing him down, getting more guns. And finally he just ends up using the lightsaber, so he has a moment with that because he's also, really good at melee fighting. Mm-hmm. Obviously that doesn't last very long. So he gets really badly wounded. And it's Rey who, I don't know if it would actually be a lightsaber battle. And she's, like I said, she's a young girl, right? And this would be the first time that she... that moment where where Kylo reaches for the lightsaber in the snow and Rey ends up attracting it to her.
Yeah.
And this is the first time she has tried this. You know how she's been practicing her whole life to try to do this? She tries it again, and this time the lightsaber comes flying to her hand. And she's like, wow, I just did it, and then she just goes, she doesn't exactly have a lightsaber battle thing because she doesn't know how to do that. But she's just like this kid, this teenager or whatever and at this point, because of what happened to Finn, just this unbridled rage. So I just see her like things, picking up things and just throwing them at
So it's more of a force battle than a lightsaber battle.
She just goes freaking nuts.
Yeah.
Like how you can just sometimes if you're up against a threat that's too big for you,
right?
If you get tipped over the edge into a temper tantrum, you just go nuts. And you just throw everything you have on you. It's like something else kicks in. Well, that's what happens with her. And so Kylo just doesn't even see this coming. This would only work one time. Like the next time they meet, this would not work.
Yeah.
But this time he's just so caught off guard by what's happening. It's just so she's able to basically take him out enough for her to get out of there.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's what's going on with all that. As far as Luke, now this is to me this. Would make a lot more sense for why Luke has disappeared. It's that Luke started to sense, how he was he kind of wandered away from everything. Mm-hmm. There were no Jedi trainees left. It was an absolute utter catastrophe. Right. And his nephew, he ended up killing him inadvertently, very different than what Rian Johnson came up with. But he starts to realize that there is some kind of dark presence, again, that has been kind of reaching out, trying to find him wherever he is. And that's the dark presence through Kylo, because Kylo's been trying to find him. You know how in Star Wars we see people kind of reaching out in the Force?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And the Kylo is trying to find Luke wherever he is. And Luke, wherever he is, before this story started, had been experiencing this at times. Wherever he was, he could sense this dark presence sort of approaching him and starting to bend his will. And it's so powerful that it terrifies him. And he realizes there's something after him. He doesn't know what it is, but he has a feeling that Ben Solo is still alive, and somehow he has to do with this. But this presence is so powerful, he's afraid it can overpower him and then use him for its own will. So what he ends up doing, he just drops off the map entirely. He doesn't tell anyone where he's going. And he goes to basically what would be Ahch-To, right? And what we see at the last of the Force, in the last scene of The Force Awakens, except it wouldn't just be an old island. It would be more than that. It would be, the only thing I can think to describe it would be like a Force well, like this really ancient place, maybe where the whole Jedi Order began in the first place, the first Force wielders. It's kind of a place where it's almost like a vortex of both the light and the dark side of the Force, kind of both are there. So he goes there and then he cuts himself off from the Force 100%. And it's as if his blip on the radar just goes off.
Yeah. So
no one can find him. And he's doing this to try to save the people that he knows, because he's afraid of what he would do if whatever this is, he's not sure what it is, would take over. And there really is precedent for this, because Yoda deliberately went to Dagobah and lived right next to that cave, which was saturated with the dark side of the Force.
Yeah.
He did that so that Palpatine would not be able to find him, because that dark presence sort of counterbalanced his, aura in the Force or whatever what you would call it. So there is precedent for that. So yeah, I kind of see where the movie would end. The Leia and Han, Rey, Finn, they're on this old rebel base that no one knows about except for Leia at the time. And it had never been returned to since the New Republic started. They're there. Even Thrawn doesn't know about it. They're trying to regroup, trying to figure out what to do because 90% of the New Republic just fell. Not all of it, but a lot of it, by this man Thrawn, who had this fledgling fleet of who was just so smart. He almost took them out entirely. So they're. It's not that the New Republic is gone; it's that most of the infrastructure has fell, and a lot of their fleet, a lot of their military power is gone, but not all of it. Yeah, so that's where they are. And then R2-D2 is there. I think it will be the same story where R2-D2's kind of been asleep ever since Luke disappeared, right? And they kind of found Luke's X-Wings left somewhere with R2-D2.
Yeah.
And R2-D2 hasn't been active since. And maybe this would be cheesy. You have to let me know what you think about this because my idea is that Leia... Maybe this would be too coincidental or too cheesy, but Leia kind of in this point of despair or whatever, she kind of just goes up to R2 knowing that he hasn't been active in a while and they can't do anything to seem to turn him on. She just starts reminiscing about her times with R2. And then she starts thinking about Luke and how much they need him. And she says, help me, Luke Skywalker, you're my only hope. And as soon as she says that, R2 activates all of a sudden. It's almost... Either that's something R2 needed to hear, if that's weird to say, or maybe Luke told R2 that unless you hear "you're my only hope" or you hear something, along those lines, don't activate. But when R2 activates, he then gives a hologram message that Luke recorded, just like how Leia recorded a message for Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Luke there explains to her that why he left. First of all, that he felt bad for Ben, but then he dropped off the map because something was basically hunting him. And so he doesn't say in his message where he went. He just says, "I'm gone. I'm sorry." Basically he's apologizing, but he has, for their sake, he has to go.
Yeah. Which
to me is miles beyond the sad sack that they made him out to be in this new trilogy. And he's saying, whatever this threat is, I know the Force will produce somebody to be able to counter it. I don't know who. I know it's not me, but he has belief in the Force. That it'll that some kind of Jedi or something or other will rise to kind of balance it. And they have Rey. They sort of know that she has this amazing Force ability. I don't know if they know. I think Finn knows that Rey's a clone. Because of maybe some kind of tattoo marking she has on her body that's like medical or whatever. So I don't know if they know exactly what Rey is, that she is Luke's clone or not. But I do know that Leia basically forces R2 to tell her where Luke went. And if there's anyone else R2 is going to listen to other than Luke, it would be Leia. So Luke, R2, if you can say this, fesses up where Luke went. And, and Finn, and they send Rey to Luke. They send her to him deliberately, basically as a way of saying, you can't run from this. This is the person the Force has produced. Now it's your job to train her and to do something about this. If maybe you're not the person to stand up against this, or maybe it's the combination of the two of you. But anyway, they send her and they send Finn with her to protect her, I think, even though he's still recovering. But he's like her big brother now, so that's all she has. So anyway.
Yeah. I like that a lot. It's really good.
Sorry that took so long.
No. It was good. It was real good. Yeah. Wow.
I don't know. I just feel like that would be more interesting.
I think, and I think that's... Okay, so we've kind of given a full reboot, a full using what was given to you, and and a full, not like a half and half, but still like already the ideas, the characters, the development, it's way better. It's leaps and bounds more interesting to me as a listener than what we ended up getting. I think it's just a shame, but yeah. So that is what we would do. So I think kind of the Josh and I are kind of on the same page of making Thrawn the main villain, and when we explore the future episodes, we're going to continue on in that vein, I believe, kind of continue where we started building. If and when we get around to the next ones, I think in the next episode we're gonna tackle something else first, and just kind of have a
step back
from Star Wars, which is something that we really love, and go with go in a different direction for the next episode. But we'd love to get some feedback, what you guys thought about our ideas. Maybe we can try to post somewhere just kind of the breakdown of what we were saying, just different ideas that we had talked about and come up with. But if you have any feedback, just please feel free to comment or send us an email. We'll set that up and we'll post that somewhere. And if there's any movies that you guys were interested in us reviewing or possibly taking a look at, be sure to send those to us. We'll take a look at those and see what we can come up with. But yeah, I think that's what we want to accomplish with this podcast is taking a look at movies that we really just hoped would be better, and saying, okay, this is where it fell flat. This is what we liked. This is where it fell